Hello, welcome back to the Future Anthropology podcast. I'm David Driscoll.
I'm Steve Kim.
And I'm Arnel Quirito.
We are here to talk about all topics related to coexistence and co-evolution between humanity and technology and related fields of consciousness. So, uh, if you have not seen us before, I'll give you a little background. I studied anthropology at Princeton University, but now I teach Qigong and brain education.
I'm representing the spirituality tradition, the Eastern tradition. I practice Zen and or meditation for more than 30 years.
And I used to work in the tech space as an engineer and currently a student at the Institute of Brain Education studying Earth Management.
So today we want to get into the topic of longevity. And off the bat, longevity sounds like a good thing. I think it's safe to say we want to live longer and healthier. And it seems like we're moving in that direction. Medicine, technology, all kinds of things are giving us the opportunity for a longer lifespan. So that's a good thing. But there's also some reason to consider that it may be more complicated than that, and there's some other factors to consider. So the first question, oh, is longevity always a good thing? And if not, why? Like, what are the challenges to longevity? Any ideas?
Uh, the I'm this year I'm passing. I planned for my 120 years life, and then this year I'm passing the first half of it. So at this point, when I look at the future of my life, actually, first question that I ask is what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do with that. If I expand my lifespan, then the taking care of myself, my health and my physical, mental health and well-being and all those things. But actually, the more important question for me is what there's a vast space in front of me, and what am I going to fill with that I think will be the very important question about that.
Uh, I remember there was the book, I've Decided to Live 120 Years by Ilchi Lee. And when it came out, I spoke with some people, especially folks who were in their 70s or 80s, some younger. And to my surprise, a lot of them were not very positive about the prospect of living past 100. They didn't want to, and they were kind of like negative about it. And that really surprised me. But I think you might understand issues like failing health or a lack of social connection or purpose made a lot of people feel like that wouldn't be a good existence. So kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I think part of why a lot of people resist the idea of living for too long is because they think that, when they're 80, 90, their life is going to be like their parents, where, it's more difficult to walk or get around and they need help. But actually, right now, a lot of uh, research and money, billions of dollars, are going into longevity research and also expanding health span. So, not just living longer, but being more healthy in those older ages so that you can still enjoy life like you're in your 40s and 50s.
So not just lifespan, but health span. Right. So that's a kind of a question, is what is life going to look like as we get older, and what are the technologies out there right now that are progressing with longevity?
I think that one, something like replenishing your blood with the young blood, right? That's one what's like vampires. That's one of the possibilities, right? And then the other thing, so we can see like biological or mechanical or even digital. So I think that's one way. Maybe we
So
can
digital longevity.
I mean, what he just talked about is like biological options,
Mhm.
or we may include just cloning your whole self and then replacing organs whenever something fails. That's that kind of idea. Or I mean, I know that there are people who are replacing some body parts.
Mm.
For example, exoskeleton. When you don't have enough strength, and you put a structure, and then and then help you to move better. So those kind of possibilities also another option that we can consider for expanding our lifespan or health lifespan. And also the thing that we talked about last time, making yourself digital and then continue to exist in a virtual space forever.
So, I mean, things like joint replacements and organ replacement, transplants, those have been around and then are getting, I don't know, say easier, but better and better, faster and faster. So that technology, that medical technology is certainly there. But now you're talking about, is it really coming? The age of like cloning human beings and then transferring consciousness. So digital longevity. If it's digital longevity, isn't it possible like immortality?
I think that's a very challenging topic and challenging question. But uh, one of the I think it is the most, to me is one of the most boldest prediction about the future. One of the renowned futurists, Ray Kurzweil, he predicted, one of his boldest prediction is humanity will reach immortality by 2030, only 5 years from now.
Wow.
2030, so 5 years away. So yeah, I would ask, what does that immortality look like?
That's the big question.
That's the question.
Yeah, because when I think about immortality, you're talking about a digital immortality. My idea immediately goes to like the Matrix, where people are living in some kind of like physical stasis and their consciousness is existing in a digital space. So do you see people like existing in a digital world, like immortally living in a digital world, or does that look like people somehow existing in the real world with other people who are physically here?
So just to jump in on a related topic, I've heard a lot of people say, just, I think you've even said this in some class before, just keep yourself healthy for another 10 to 15 years. And then the medical technology is going to advance enough that we're going to be able to live forever. So you just got to hang in there.
Yeah.
And manage your diet and manage your exercise and avoid any accidents until that point, like the kind of like the singularity, but like medically. And then we'll be able to fix anything, and you can just keep going after that.
Yeah, I mean the possibilities is already there, and but I think the some other aspects of that possibility is, will that technology available for everyone?
I think that's a huge issue, is the disparity in lifespans, which already exists and always has existed between wealthy communities and countries and less wealthy. And then if it's technology-based longevity, who gets access to that? It's already diet, exercise, all these things have an influence, pollution. But in the future, does that become more extreme?
Yeah, I think that's another reason why people are so afraid of the future is they think like, who's going to be controlling that technology and how are they going to be controlling it? If it's the wealthy, does it look like it looks now where, we don't know who's making decisions, but they're obviously not making decisions for the majority.
Right. And then a couple movies come up, like Elysium, one of the sci-fi movies where the rich live on a space station, luxury, and Earth is really not the place you want to be anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories like that. One thing that I think, like a counter argument I've seen when we look towards the increasing gap between rich and poor, many people say, but if you really look at it, everybody's life expectancy is better than it was 100 years ago. So the general population, everybody's condition is better, even if it's still not necessarily equal or where we would like it to be. So diet is better in most places, knowledge, medical technology is better. But in the future, there's some global issues. So just access to food or knowledge or medical care may not be the primary factors in longevity in the long run. So what are some other things that might be coming up that affect whether or not we actually live longer?
I mean, it's related to the food, the climate change, for example. Actually, it's very surprising that how easily we forget, and then because currently there are many other bigger, we don't we cannot say it's more important, but more immediate. The issues that requires people's more immediate attention, for example, elections or military conflicts and war and those kind of things. So because of that, actually, we don't talk about the climate issue as much as we did just a few years ago. But it's still going, and then while we are not doing anything, it's the issue, the more extreme, getting bigger. So that will, and also it's a global, but it's very personal because it will affect everybody's quality of living. So I think that's another challenge. I think the other than what we already know, like nutrition, exercise, and sleep and rest, and then social connection and all those things, if you add two more factors that will affect our the longevity or the quality of living, will be climate change and technology.
Climate change and technology. So climate change is kind of a threat, more or less, to our system.
Sure.
So something I wonder about, though, is also we have this advance in technology that is able to address some of these, climate effects that we're creating. Like a lot of studies and technologies being advanced to try and answer a lot of these environmental impacts that we've had and try and fix these things. And I'm kind of hopeful that we'll utilize AI and technology in a way that we can find ways to solve this problem. And if that happens, I think the question we were asking earlier is like, what is the purpose of our life if those problems are no longer a factor? Like if environment is no longer a factor and technology is being utilized in a way that benefits us, like what do we do with the rest of our life if we don't have any challenges?
So first is the question of whether or not we're actually going to have the opportunity to live longer and like develop technology or deal with the technologies that do develop. But then second is if we get our wish, more or less, then are we actually ready for extended lifespans and even immortality? Why is that potentially challenging?
I think the idea, the concept of immortality or infinity is way beyond our normal comprehension. Even when people think about longevity, they are thinking about adding a few more years to their life. I mean, it may worth the investment if how desperate can we be when you know how much lifespan you have, then you want, there's something that you want to do, something that you didn't finish, or some love that you want to share more with the people around you, then just adding a few more time, just even a few days, it may worth millions of dollars. So we understand that their passion and their why they are so desperate about that. But when we talk about this new level of possibility, infinity, immortality, it's not just adding just a few years to the lifespan. When I talk about this, one of the question that I usually ask is, maybe let me ask you, how many romances did you have in your life? I know that you are early 40s something. Okay, how many romances did you have so far?
A few.
A few.
But that's okay. Like get in trouble for this now.
Yeah, I have a few too. So, but when I reflect on that, and something was really beautiful, and then, but even if you had the most beautiful romance in human history, not just in your personal life, but how many times do you want to repeat that? And when I reflect on my experience, twice is more than enough.
So I don't know. I think a lot of people might have a different opinion, but I really understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Some people are addicted, or if not even romance, but any kind of emotional experience or dramatic romantic experience. It can become just like the feeling again, the addiction.
Yeah, even the addiction, because the reason why they seek something new in their life is because there's a fear of boredom.
Yeah.
So that's what that when we really think about that, and then that's not just adding a few years, but the completely different level of expansion. Then we don't know what to do to fill that vast empty space. So I think the one of the scary thing to our imagination is just vast space, nothing in it, nothing to fill with. So when we apply that kind of the image or concept into to our lifespan, then we may currently, if you ask that question, then actually almost anybody don't have any answer for that. A few years, we may have good idea,
Mhm.
but that level of expanded lifespan, we don't have an answer for that. So that's why I believe either managing the climate change or adapting the technology into to our life and then expand our lifespan to infinitely or immortality, that kind of thing, cannot the answer to that question cannot just come from the intellectual understanding about technologies. It requires much more than just that 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 level of understanding.
I feel like there's also like a third factor besides like technology and climate is also like the social aspect. So like when people reach ages beyond humanity has ever reached before, what type of humans do we become? Like when people reach 60, their perspective of life changes. When people reach 70 and 80 and 90, like what kind of perspective do we have when we're 100, 200, 300 years old?
You made me think. Remember something I was thinking about recently is the extending lifespans. Evolutionarily, human beings may have evolved for hundreds of thousands of years, living to age 30 or maybe 40, maybe 50. I don't know. But a lot of times, the evidence suggests that people died when their teeth started to wear out, which was 30, 40 years. So lifespans were about that long. And if you think about that, then some of the hormonal, emotional stages we go through, they kind of fit very easily. Like when you're a teenager in your 20s, you have all this desire and ambition and you're finding your place. And then when you're in your 30s, you want to like be the leader, you want to start get recognition. And then your 40s, you start to calm down and then you may be done. And so it's just like all that energy is all used that time. But now you may be 30, 40, 50, and you still have the energy. You want to find a new partner. You want to get new recognition. You want to have new experiences in travel. And then it's like those physical and energetic stages we go through have to be a little bit stretched out to accommodate this longer lifespan. And it doesn't always work well. Sometimes you got people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who are still dominated by desire and just want to have that new experience. So that kind of thing, I think, is we have to adjust to. The other thing you make me think of a lot is vampires. Because vampires live forever. They're immortal. And these days, vampires are cool. Like they're teenagers and they're hot and all this stuff. But actually, it's a horror story.
Yeah.
And if you go to the essence of that kind of story, and other people have said it too, living with infinite time and infinite ability, no end, is actually horror.
And actually, in a lot of those kind of the stories or movies, actually, immortality was used as a curse, not as a blessing.
Wow.
Not being able to die. That's one of the
What's one of the classic curses that I've heard is, may you always receive everything you wish immediately.
That's very scary if you really think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like if you imagine a life where you get to do everything that you want to do, what is your life after that?
And if you, well, they say in some of these things, like these vampires or these immortal beings wish for death.
So I believe even these technologies, for example, digital version, I think that's many of these, they're not complete yet, but all of these possibilities are not sci-fi anymore. Their possibilities are real, but
Not just entertainment.
not just entertainment. But I think the question that we asked today, what are you going to do with that? Or are we ready for that? Those kind of questions will become much more meaningful, much more serious. And I hope many people, without asking this question, if they choose immortality, go into that, a lot of people will realize later, I wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have chosen this if I had known.
Sure, right.
Well, again, that's the TV show Upload that brings up that question.
Sure, right.
And a number of other ones too. But we have that experience also. I think a lot of people already with longevity have, and that's going back to those responses about, do you want to live 120 years? A lot of people say no. They're already facing that boredom. I heard that one of the biggest modern fears is boredom. And then if you take boredom to the extreme, what is that? It's actually some kind of nihilism, emptiness. Nothing means anything and I can't escape. As I said before, it's kind of horror. So like you say, if that technology is coming, and it seems like there's evidence to suggest it is closer than we might expect, then that initial desire, like the desire to become a vampire that a lot of people, oh, make me a vampire, I want to be immortal too. And then once it happens, they're like, ooh, this was the wrong choice. I am not prepared for this. So I just have a little more question about, like, wouldn't it be cool to be a digital consciousness and feel like if you could explore all of the different images and information, like, wouldn't that be great? Or do you really think it would be hard? And how would we need to prepare for that kind of existence? Both.
I feel like it's coming anyways, because there is this very strong desire to like experience everything. Like our physical desire to try new things and experience new things is very strong. Like
Even just to see them.
yeah. And eventually that digital space will exist where we can experience all those things. And maybe that might be the cheapest way to do it, is you experience it virtually. And then that prepares you. Yeah, that kind of prepares you for the rest of your life. Like, okay, now you've experienced everything. What more do you want to do now? Like maybe there's something that'll come out like that. Experience anything and everything. And then that pushes us to ask the question, like, what do I want?
What else, right?
What else is there? Yeah.
Well, we talked before, there's actually an ancient concept of life cycle of 60 years. And then in again, the 120 years book, it's that first 60 years is for accumulating knowledge and experience. And then the second 60 years is for kind of giving back and reaching completion. So, that experience portion, and then maybe there's a portion where you practice letting go. You practice, because if you are transferring to a digital consciousness, so much of what we rely on for direction each day comes from the desires and needs of the body or the habits of the emotions. It could be shocking to have an existence without that. Could feel so lonely. So maybe like a meditation practice.
Sure. The possibilities that the new technologies bring to our life, I think most of the reality that might become possible in the near future, we won't be able to manage that without really spiritual transformation.
I was just thinking that too.
Different, because any of these, like the longevity, like the infinity immortality, that's just one of the things, but also expanding your experience beyond your personal life, and then the making a digital self and all of those things without, and also dealing with yourself without having a kind of hormonal reaction from your body, because a lot of our emotions and those, all of those things, even though we think it may be just intellectual, but actually it's not true. It comes from a lot of interaction between our brain and body. But having experience purely digital without having a reaction from your body, what how would you process that? And all of those things, a lot of that may be close to deep meditation without being engaging your physical reaction or complete stillness and all those things. So, which means a lot of these possibilities that may become the reality of our life in the near future. A lot of people, most of us, won't be able to manage that without much deeper inner spiritual transformation and new different level of consciousness. Without deep awakening, we may not know what to do with this.
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot, because, you know, when I was in school, I used to always think, like, how am I going to use this? You know, I always felt like school is supposed to prepare me for the life I'm going to live outside of school. And then you become an adult and you're not prepared for anything. You're not prepared for taxes. You're not prepared for, you know, managing your schedule and talking to your boss.
Going on interviews.
Yeah. And then, you know, like, we practice brain education. And for me, that feels like, oh, this is real education for life. This is how I can manage my emotions, how I can manage my energy condition, and really, like, get a feel for how do I use this body, you know? And I feel like that's something that we're going to need for this new digital age. Like you said, we need some kind of training or some kind of preparation.
We already need it, obviously, even with what seems like relatively little transition to that digital age. Like, we already seriously need more of that mindfulness, more of that ability to observe what am I reacting to. I think the thought experiment of going into that artificial consciousness just brings it forward quite a bit.
So, what's really exciting for me for the possible new technologies is when we may, by changing our mind, we may create new technologies, but also the other way maybe also can happen. So the new technology that require that's something that we cannot manage with our current way of functioning may help us to really wake up the much bigger potential from us. So I think that's the but it won't happen just automatically.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the preparation of consciousness and institutions and I think education. We're not really focused on that, but human beings really have that desire to survive and adapt, a good ability to adapt, especially when there's a crisis. So I could see that technological shift would bring that about. But I think having a body is very helpful in that process, because the desire to survive is very motivating for us to change. Otherwise, habits are so hard to change. So I think that physical desire is actually very useful for change.
Yeah, that's actually something I take a lot of like comfort in, knowing that, you know, humanity's willpower is strongest when we're faced against challenge that, like, threatens our life. And I feel like, you know, there is a lot of fear about where technology is going and how quickly things are changing and how much danger is involved in that. And I feel like it's almost a way for us to kind of push ourselves, because we're too comfortable, and without any kind of danger, without any kind of survival instinct, we don't really change our habits. But we're almost creating this tool that's going to push us to our limits and see, like, okay, now things are very different. What are you going to do, humanity?
I think that's true. So how about any final thoughts on the age of longevity, immortality, maybe, and how to prepare for it. Are we ready, and how should we get ready?
So for that, linking the what you just talked about, your body experience. One perspective that I would suggest is use your body experience not as your boundary, but as your limitation. I mean, not as your when we say boundary is instead of using it to define who you are or what you are, I would say use it as a limitation and try to look at what's beyond. And I think that kind of perspective will be needed for us.
Yeah.
What is beyond, and so use it as to define instead of what you really are. I would suggest use it as to define what you're not.
That's the vessel. So what is it containing?
Mm-hmm.
And if the vessel was different, that essence would be there.
Yeah, because so far our experience may be limited by that, but I think the possibilities beyond that is way greater than what we have so far.
Well, we may be, as Arnel said, we may be pushing ourselves into a situation where we do have to go beyond this body and find out what's more than the physical existence.
Yeah, I mean, this way or that way, that might happen.
Good.
I think if you reflect on that early on, then we'll be much better prepared for that.
Sure.
And actively come out of this limitation and explore the greater possibilities instead of trying to stay away from that, the changes in fear.
Yeah.
So that's what I would suggest.
I think that's the approach, a mature approach to aging and mortality in general, is don't try to run away from it, and then the moment it arrives, not be prepared is really contemplated.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I was thinking about like centurions, people who live beyond 100, and in Japan there's a community of centurions, and one of the things that they attribute that to is a concept called ikigai, which is purpose. And for me, something that I've found very fulfilling in my life is asking the question, like, what do I want? What do I want with my life? Like, what do I want to do with my life? And really like pondering that and getting to the core of like, what is the purpose of my life here? And I feel like right now my purpose is really to ask these kinds of questions and really look at the big problems the world has and what can we do about them? You know, like what do we need to do right now? How can we prepare for them? Because I believe we can solve all the problems. I believe we have everything that we need currently. And I just think it's the mindset, it's the consciousness. And if we can just shift that, we can live in the world that everybody wants to live in.
That's great. So just kind of wrapping up with what you've been talking about, I think boldness, like the boldness to ask big questions and contemplate realities beyond our daily existence. And also the space to be mindful, just to have a little time to think about certain things or connect inside and not be just reacting to the outside. That sounds important as well. So I think that's what I really feel from this one for me is also we have to have time to meditate. So I think that's good for today. So we'll be back with future anthropology on other topics related to the future, coexistence, and coevolution. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.